Good morning, everybody. This is the Rabbit Hedgehog, and how we all doing today? It's finally decent weather here in Oklahoma, at least for the time being. Of course, actually, I think it's going to be like this the rest of the time. Usually in March, we start to see good weather come about. So, at any rate, hopefully I can finish some of the things I started, such as the How to Ride a Motorcycle series. I want to make sure I get that complete, and also some other videos as well throughout the summer. So I'm hoping to be able to do some ride reviews and things like that this year, like I did last, but only more of them this year since it's going to be a little bit easier. But I'd like to talk about today, for the first time, let's talk about the interstate. A lot of people here in Oklahoma that I talk to do not like riding on the interstate. And I don't know particularly why they don't. They just usually say that there's other people and too many things that can happen. And, you know, I don't actually agree with them. I actually think the interstate's a little bit safer for a motorcyclist than regular city streets or even the back highways. I mean, especially speaking from Oklahoma's experience, the fact that when you look at it this way, since this interstate is a federal system, the federal government tends to regulate it and make sure that it gets the maintenance that it needs. I mean, not usually the best of maintenance still, because it still needs a lot more, still needs expansion, still needs some things, but when it comes down to it, at least you're not going to run into the things that you run into on the back roads, like the state highways or any of the other roads like that, such as, and the biggest thing is potholes. Potholes. We've had basically about 3 weeks straight of some sort of ice and snow or rain. Actually, we've had 4 weeks straight if you count the rain, but we've had 3 weeks straight of ice, snow, and other precipitation on the roads that salted, sanded, grinded, and all that stuff to get it off, tore up the roads. And then now we've had another bout of weather, and it was rain over this last week, and you know, that further tore up the roads from where they already were, because they just don't quite have the temperatures yet to fill in those major potholes. And for a rider, that's not exactly the most fun thing to ride through. When it comes down to it, you look at it this way: if you got to bob and weave through traffic in the city that's slower, more bunched up, and a little bit hairier to me than this is wide open, I think that's a little bit more dangerous. The other big thing that the interstate takes away from the equation is the number one cause of motorcycle accidents, and that is the intersection. There are no intersections on the interstate. So, you know, you have these little places right here where the on-ramps join, but that's really it. And to be honest, I just kind of look back at them. I'm not changing lanes right now, but I'm still looking back at that particular on-ramp. But I look back at them, check to see if there's anybody actually on the way down, and I can move over accordingly, because another great thing about the interstate is that no matter which direction you're going in and no matter where you are, you have multiple ways of moving. Most city streets, you know, are just two lane, one coming at you, one you know, in front of you. Well, that's not the case with the interstate. You always have two going the same way you are. And you also got usually a pretty nice, generous shoulder for the emergency where somebody's cutting over and messing with you a little bit more. So I look at the interstate as actually a very liberating ride, because I don't have to worry about the same things that I would normally in the city. I can just, or the back roads, I can just kind of relax here. I can see the traffic. They're all going the same direction. They're all going approximately the same speed, which is great. It's another safety thing. City drivers, you know, even if you have multiple lane avenues and things like that, they're so varied in their speed that it causes people to run up on them and cut over and do all this other stuff. And because they're going at a slower speed, they're not really cognizant of who we are. As a motorcyclist, you're always taught to be the invisible rider. Always taught to assume that, you know, you're going to not be seen by everybody around you. So as you ride, you kind of just be cognizant of that as well, and realize that in the city, you're more than likely really not going to be seen, because these people are just trying to get to whatever fast food joint or shopping mall or whatever they're up to in the quickest time possible, and quite frankly, you're in their way. So always be mindful of that. But on the interstate, I mean, I'm doing the speed limit mostly here. It's 70 miles an hour through here, and you can see people are going by me quite readily. Well, that's fine to me. I mean, we're not in a big bunch. We're not changing lanes. We're all staying put. And that's the great part. I mean, there's no reason to really move around. And usually if you do, you've already pulled far enough away that you can cut over without any problem, without cutting me off or running me off the road. I know there's still a possibility of it, and you hear about it all the time. But, you know, it's still not as present as it is in the city, where you can have that happen, plus an intersection wreck, plus trying to dodge a pothole into a person. I mean, there's so many things that I do not like about city riding that I love about interstate riding. Now, granted, I do like the back roads. I do like the state highways. I do like the smaller roads that you can take, because they offer better scenery, more curves and things like that. And as a motorcycle rider, I can appreciate, because I get to play with my bike and see where it can go and how it can turn, and get to test it. So when it comes down to that, I still enjoy those roads. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm just saying that if you're a motorcycle rider and you have some sort of fear about the interstate and what it does, then you don't need to. It's kind of something you don't have to worry about. You know, it's just smooth riding. But anyway, that's going to be my spiel about the interstate right now. But when it comes down to it, you know, I also look at it this way about the safety of the motorcycle and the rider as well. As we get into this riding season, I know that people are, you know, starting to talk to me a little bit more about bikes and about riding them, but the danger also. A lot of people mention, oh, you're going to die, you're going to do this. Well, I've ridden on and off for 10 years, and now I've been riding straight for a year since I finally bought my own bike. And, you know, I've known a lot of people. I've known several people go down. I know a lot of them that have got right back up and got back on. I know a lot of people who have stopped too. And, you know, I do know the people who've died tragically on bikes. And I have to say that while inherently more dangerous than a car, the likelihood of a bike being involved in a wreck is actually much substantially less than a car. However, yes, when it comes down to it, you're going to get hurt more because you're not as protected. So you look at it that way. You're not necessarily going to be in a wreck at any time. But always remember this too, all the gear, all the time. I know that there's times where you'll see me in short sleeves and stuff like that, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but usually I'm on roads that are slower speeds when I'm doing that, like a city street or maybe a back highway. I'm not on the interstate or anything like that, but whenever I actually travel the interstate, I definitely have all my gear. I've got my chaps on, I've got my jacket on, I've got my CE armor in the shoulders and the elbows and the back. I've got, you know, my helmet and everything on, and my gloves. I always wear gear of some sort. I mean, I always wear my helmet. In Oklahoma, we don't have to. It's a you know, option for us at my age. So, but I always wear it, because the people that I know that get in the wreck and bounce back up and are back on the bike, they have a helmet on. And I know one of them crashed on what's called the Hefner Parkway here, and a car, basically a Suburban, bounced off of him. He hit the deck, slid, and did all that, but his helmet saved his life, and he got right back on as soon as he healed up. So, you know, but I have other stories though that people weren't wearing their helmets, and sorry to say they didn't make it. And you know, that's just those things. I know that there's stories where people were wearing their helmets, and some people will blame the helmet on the death and things like that. That's something you don't need to do. Helmets don't cause the death. I mean, the nature of motorcycle riding is that, and such, you're not as protected. So if something does actually happen, you know, you're more than likely could die from something else besides head trauma. And in fact, most of the people I've talked to, I'll find the family, you know, just to kind of correlate the story, and I'll find that some other trauma that killed him and not head trauma. So please be cognizant of that as well. I mean, I'm being a big safety mongrel now, because we are finally back riding and getting to enjoy the weather that we have. So, you know, when we get out there, folks, just remember, as a rider, you do take a chance whenever you're out here, but it's not any more or any less than what would happen in a car. It's just the risk of the injury may be more. So when you look at it that way, you know, that's what you need to think about. What can I do to protect myself and protect my body in the event that the inevitable may happen. I mean, it's one of those things where I've always been told it's not when you're going to drop, it's not if you're going to drop, it's actually when. You know, you're going to drop. A lot of people say that you're going to drop. There's just no way to avoid it most of the time. But always be ready and mindful that there may be a time that you have to. You may have to do something to save your life, to drop your bike and things like that. But you need to make sure that you've got the proper gear that can handle the situation when it does come up. So, you know, that's going to be my spiel today about the interstate and some of the safety precautions on a bike as we come back up on riding season. Like I said, hopefully I'll be able to complete the basic rider portion of my how to ride and start on the advanced. I still need to do the ride, and I tried to do it a few weeks back and we still had the 70-degree temperatures, but something went wrong with my audio, and it recorded then just quit. And turns out one of my cameras had a bad jack in it, and it shorted out right at that moment. So thank you, Sony, for the new camera. Anyway, if you have any questions or if you have anything that you want to talk about, please put it down in the comments below. This is the Rabbit Hedgehog. I hope everybody will be safe. Catch you on the flip side. Have a good one.